Treaty with the Comanche and Kiowa, October 18, 1865, ratified May 22, 1865. Articles of a treaty made and concluded at the Council Ground on the Little Arkansas River, 8 miles from the mouth of said river in the state of Kansas on the 18th day of October in the year of our Lord, 1865. By and between John B. Sanborn, William S. Harney, Thomas Murphy, Kit Carson, William W. Bent, Jesse Leavenworth, and James Dale, commissioners on the part of the U.S. and the undersigned chiefs and headmen of the several bands of Comanche Indians specified in connection with their signatures, and the chiefs and headmen of the Kiowa tribe of Indians, the said chiefs and headmen by the said bands and tribes being thereunto duly authorized. Article 1. It is agreed by the parties to this treaty that hereafter Indian parties hereto shall forever remain at peace with each other and with all other Indians who sustain friendly relations with the government of the U.S. For the purpose of enforcing the provisions of this article, it is agreed that in case hostile acts or depredations are committed by the people of the U.S. or by the Indians on friendly terms with the U.S. against the tribe or tribes, or the individual members of the tribe or tribes who are parties to this treaty, such hostile acts or depredations shall not be redressed by a resort to arms, but the party or parties aggrieved shall submit their complaints through their agent to the President of the U.S., and thereupon an impartial arbitration shall be had under his direction, and the award thus made shall be binding on all parties interested, and the government of the U.S. will in good faith enforce the same. And the Indian parties hereto on their part agree in case crimes or other violations of law shall be committed by any person or persons, members of their tribe, such person or persons shall, upon complaint being made in writing to their agent, superintendent of Indian affairs, or to other proper authorities by the party injured and verified by affidavit, be delivered to the person duly authorized to take such person or persons into custody, to the end that such person or persons may be punished according to the laws of the U.S. Article 2. The U.S. hereby agree that the district of country embraced within the following limits, or such portion of the same as may hereafter from time to time be designated by the President of the U.S. for that purpose, viz., commencing at the northeast corner of New Mexico, thence south to the southeast corner of the same, thence northeastwardly to a point on Main Red River opposite the mouth of the North Fork of said river, thence down said river to the 98th degree of west longitude, thence due north on said meridian to the Cimarron River, thence up said river to a point where the same crosses the southern boundary of the state of Kansas, thence said southern boundary of Kansas to the southwest corner of the state, thence west to the place of beginning shall be and is hereby set apart for the absolute and undisturbed use and occupation of the tribes who are parties to this treaty, and of such other friendly tribes as to have herefore resided within said limits, or as they may from time to time agree to admit among them, and that no white person except officers, agents, and employees of the government shall go upon or settle within the country embraced within said limits, unless formally admitted and incorporated into some one of the tribes lawfully residing there according to its laws and usages. The Indians parties hereto on their part expressly agree to remove to and accept as their permanent home the country embraced within said limits, whenever directed so to do by the President of the U.S., in accordance with the provisions of this treaty, and that they will not go from said country for hunting purposes without the consent in writing of their agent, or another authorized person, specifying the person for which such leave is granted, and such written consent in all cases shall be borne with them upon their excursions, as evidence that they are rightfully away from their reservation, and shall be respected by all officers, employees, and citizens of the U.S. as their sufficient safeguard and protection against injury or damage in person or property by any and all persons whomsoever. It is further agreed by Indian parties hereto that when absent from their reservation they will refrain from the commission of any depredations or injuries to the person or property of all persons sustaining friendly relations with the government of the U.S., that they will not, while so absent, encamp by day or night within 10 miles of any of the main traveled routes or roads through the country to which they go, or of the military posts, towns, or villages therein, without the consent of the commanders of such military posts, or of the civil authorities of such towns or villages, that henceforth they will and do hereby relinquish all claims or rights in and to any portion of the U.S. or territories except such as embraced within the limits aforesaid, and more especially their claims and rights in and to the country north of the Cimarron River and west of the eastern boundary of New Mexico. Article 3. It is further agreed that until the Indian parties are here to have removed to the reservation provided for by the preceding article, and pursuant to the stipulations thereof, said Indians shall be and they are hereby expressly permitted to reside upon and range at pleasure throughout the unsettled portions of that part of the country they claim as originally theirs, which lies south of the Arkansas River, as well as the country embraced within the limits of the reservation provided for by the preceding article, and that they shall and will not go elsewhere except upon the terms and conditions prescribed by the preceding article, article in relation to leaving said reservation, provided that the provisions of the preceding article in regard to encamping within 10 miles of main traveled routes, military posts, towns, and villages shall be in full force as to the privileges granted by this article, and provided further that they, the said Indians, shall and will at all times and without delay report to the commander of the nearest military post the presence in or approach to said country of any hostile band or bands of Indians whatsoever. Article 4. It is further agreed by the parties hereto that the U.S. may lay off and build through the reservation provided for by Article 2 of this treaty roads or highways as may deem necessary, and may also establish such military posts within the same as may be found necessary in order to preserve peace among the Indians, and in order to enforce such laws, rules, and regulations as are now or may from time to time be prescribed by the President and Congress of the U.S. for the protection of the rights of persons and property among Indians residing upon said reservation, and further that in time of war such other military posts as may be considered essential to the general interests of the U.S. may be established. Provided, however, that upon the building of such roads or establishment of such military posts, the amount of injury sustained by reason thereof by the Indians inhabiting said reservation shall be ascertained under direction of the President of the U.S., and thereupon such compensation shall be made to said Indians, as in the judgment of the Congress of the U.S. may be deemed just and proper. Article 5. The U.S. agree that they will expand annually during the period of 40 years from and after the ratification of this treaty for the benefit of Indians who are parties hereto and of such others as may unite with them in pursuance of the terms hereof, in such manner and for such purposes as in the judgment of Secretary of Interior for the time being will best subserve their wants and interests as a people, the following amounts, that is to say, until such time as said Indians shall be removed to their reservations as provided for by Article 2 of this treaty, an amount which shall be equal to $10 per capita for each person entitled to participate in the beneficial provisions of this treaty, and from and after the time when such removal shall have been accomplished, an amount which shall be equal to $15 per capita for each person entitled as aforesaid. Such proportion of the expenditure provided for by this article as may be considered expedient to distribute in the form of annuity shall be delivered to said Indians as follows, viz. 1/3 thereof during the spring and 2/3 thereof during the autumn of each year. For the purpose of determining from time to time the aggregate amount to be expended under the provisions of this article, it is agreed that the number entitled to its beneficial provisions the coming year is 4,000, and that an accurate census of the Indians entitled shall be taken at the time of the annuity payment in the spring of each year by their agent or other person designated by the Secretary of the Interior, which census shall be the basis on which the amount to be expended on the next ensuing year shall be determined. Article 6. The Indian parties to this treaty expressly covenant and agree that they will use their utmost endeavors to induce that portion of the respective tribes not now present to unite with them and accede to the provisions of this treaty, which union and accession shall be evidenced and made binding on all parties whenever such absentees shall have participated in the beneficial provisions of this treaty. In testimony whereof, the said commissioners on the part of the U.S. and the chiefs and headmen of the said bands of Comanche Indians and of the Kiowa tribe of Indians, hereinbefore referred to and designated in connection with their signatures, have hereunto subscribed their names and affixed their seals on the day and year first above written. John B. Sanborn, William S. Harney, Kit Carson, William W. Bint, James Steele, Thomas Murphy, J. H. Leavenworth, commissioners on the part of the U.S., sign and seal them. The present W. R. Irwin, Secretary, William T. Kittredge, D. C. McNeil, Jason Boyd. Tabanananica, or Rising Sun, Chief of Yampirica, or Root Eater Band of Comanches, for Paddy Wasamer, and Hotuyokotwats Band, his ex-mark. Eshetave Para, or Female Infant, Headman of Yampirica Band of Comanches, his ex-mark. Ashahapi, or Milky Way, Chief Penetaha, or Sugar Eater Band of Comanches, and for Kochitaka, or Buffalo Eater Band, his ex-mark. Queen Eva, or Eagle Drinking, Head Chief of Nokoni, or Go About Band of Comanches, his ex-mark. Tahayir Kwop, or Horse's Back, Second Chief of Nokoni, or Go About Band of Comanches, his ex-mark. Puchina Kwop, or Buffalo Hump, Third Chief of Penetonka, or Sugar Eater Band of Comanches, his ex-mark. Hotoyokowwa, or Over the Buttes, Chief of Yampirica Band, his ex-mark. Perry Wayesamer, or Timbears, Chief of Yampirica Band, his ex-mark. Boya Watoyahe, or Iron Mountain, Chief of Yampirica Band of Comanches, his ex-mark. Boa Kwasa, or Iron Shirt, Chief of Denavi Band, or Liver Eater Band of Comanches, his ex-mark. Tosawai, or Silver Brooch, Head Chief of Penetonka Band of Comanches, his ex-mark. Quill Park, or Lone Wolf, his ex-mark. Watokok, or Black Eagle, his ex-mark. Zipki Yap, or Big Bow, his ex-mark. Satanta, or White Bear, his ex-mark. Tana Inko, or Kicking Eagle, his ex-mark. Septam Kaya, or Bear Runs Over a Man, his ex-mark. Kapa'e, or Plumed Lance, his ex-mark. Tahau Sun, or Little Mountain, his ex-mark. Satank, or Sitting Bear, his ex-mark. Pawnee, or Poor Man, his ex-mark. Takibo, or Stinking Saddlecloth, chief of the Kiowa tribe, his mark.